Today, I want to talk to you about technology and how it changes. We're future casting. This is Ready for Work. All right, welcome back to the program. This is Ready for Work, the podcast for career and technical education professionals, for parents, for teachers, and even for students. And today, I want to talk about technology and how it changes over time, mostly out of necessity. If you're unaware, we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. So I want to go back to the past during the industrial revolution or around that time, a little later. And I want to talk about something you may be familiar with, and that is Dewalt power tools. Those yellow tools that you see at the big box stores. Sometimes now they come in a kit. They're battery operated, and you know, even that in technology, battery operated hand tools is relatively new technology, but of course, it sprang out of innovation and necessity on a job site, I would imagine. But I'm going to go back and talk about Ray Dewalt. Raymond E. Dewalt. He was born in 1885. In Oakland, Pennsylvania. And his father was a woodworker. And after he left school, he became a woodworker, and he kind of drifted from sawmill to sawmill. And he's a pretty bright guy. He invented tools, again, out of necessity, his entire career. Flash forward a little bit in, I believe in the 1920s, it was 1922, he became eventually the superintendent of Seabrook Farms. And here, I believe this is the place. And here he was sort of tasked with productivity and efficiency. And so the bosses at the sawmill there at Seabrook kind of tasked him with getting more work out of the workers. And he said, well, in order to do that, I'm going to need a little bit more money in the budget. And they said, nope, not going to happen. So he took it upon himself to help the workers with some innovation. And again, he's a tool maker. So what he did was he took an electric saw, a motor on a saw blade, a round saw blade, like you might see at a sawmill, and he attached that to an arm. They called it a standard arm, but the way that he did that was the saw on the arm could run back and forth, but it could also be tilted from side to side. And ultimately, what that did was it was able to sort of speed up the work. That is efficiency. That is productivity, and they say it helped with the productivity of 4 men. So it was an enormous success, far more than anyone, even Ray Dewalt, even expected. And so that was sort of the first part of what is now known as the radial arm saw. Well, he began to perfect this radial arm saw, and eventually went into business of his own. And he called that saw the Wonder Worker, and was in production for a long time. Actually, through 1989, they stopped producing it eventually. And he kept this going, this radial arm saw. He kept this going all the way through World War II. Even though during those years, 1945, 1947, he kind of concentrated on the war effort, as everybody else did. After the war, he kind of went into production with his radial arm saw and began producing this with some other folks. There's far more to this story than I have time to get into. But ultimately, he created this apparatus that could apparently do something to the effect of like 22 different cuts that you would traditionally need more craftsmen and specialty saws and things like that in order to do. He could cut, he could rip, he could cross cut, he could cut notches, because you could then, this Wonder Worker saw could be elevated so he could control depth and all kinds of things. And it was just, for the time, it was just the most innovative thing that it ever did. Now, if you know anything about Dewalt tools, they went and bought Porter Cable and developed other tools. And then Black & Decker became part of that brand as well. And that's where the radial arm saw was produced under Black & Decker. And like I said, those were around since almost 1990, 1989. Occasionally you find them at garage sales. If you look at it today, to me at least, so this is just an opinion, but if you look at it today, they're enormously dangerous. But just because, the blade moved, the stock would stay stationary, but the blade would move back and forth. And, you got this rolling blade that would, on this arm and would kind of hog through the wood. And you could do some amazing things with it, but it wasn't very safe. So 1989, they stopped producing those things. And of course, that's, the innovation of tools. So I'm kind of cutting things short for time here because we have a long episode. Phil Lan from Bay Valley Tech is going to talk to us, and Phil and I often talk about future casting. And Phil just has this amazing way to help me see the future through technology. And of course, he is in an industry at Bay Valley Tech. They're in an industry where they're steeped in software and technology. And I'll sort of preface that conversation with Phil allows me, in conversations with Phil, he allows me to see that it's okay that technology is emerging into everything, because that is an efficiency part. Everything from quite honestly, the construction industry, the transportation industry, manufacturing, we see that all the time in automation and manufacturing. But one of the things I didn't make a connection with, even though I kind of do this media thing, I kind of lose sight sometimes of even how movies are made. And the golden era of Hollywood, everything was really done by hand, from the lighting and the camera work and camera work. They actually used film. Some of you may be listening to this weren't even around when actual film was in heavy use in production. But all of that has changed. It's all digital. And sometimes because things are digital, we don't think of the tangible part of digital, because digital often we can't touch and feel and experience in that sort of physical way, because, it's pixels and code. And that's really what I'm getting at, is eventually we have to come to the conclusion that somebody is behind that code, and somebody is writing that code that ultimately makes all things possible today. I say it often. I could not do my job and the work that I do without my cell phone. Somebody writes all of those apps or writes the code for all of those apps that make our life really convenient. So stick around. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Phil Lan from Bay Valley Tech. This is Ready for Work.
Ready for Work is made possible with help from our premier podcast sponsor, Bay Valley Tech Code Academy. Bay Valley Tech offers free and low-cost coding programs for students seeking life-changing careers in software development. Bay Valley Tech focuses on teaching in-demand web development skills. Unlike other coding and technical schools, Bay Valley Tech leverages a unique community-based training strategy. Professional instructors help students in the Central Valley learn how to use online programming languages to accelerate their careers. Locations in Modesto and Stockton, and a free code academy as an online program, Bay Valley Tech is a great place to learn how to code, but it is an even more amazing place to build connections necessary to land a paid software internship or web development job. Learn more about this fast-growing code academy at bayvalleytech.com.
All right, welcome back to the program. We're talking future casting, and Phil Lan from Bay Valley Tech is here. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm glad you get real close to that mic. Just pull it in nice and close.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Perfect. Oh, that sounds much better. So Bay Valley Tech is a sponsor of this program, and we really, really appreciate that. You and I were having a conversation offline about this very subject. And whenever I sort of speak to you on the phone, you have this ability to get to grease my gears, right? My mental gears, right? And we were talking about how in future casting, how technology we know that technology is the future, right? But we were talking about how technology has creeped into all the little things that we don't, I guess nowadays we take for granted. And of course, I started this podcast episode with the history of Dewalt power tools. And we walked through the whole thing from when he saw this inefficiency in the place that he worked because men were cutting wood by hand. And so he attached a motor to a blade, and then that sped up the process. And now, they built smartphones and smartphone apps to control the batteries on their power tools. And it's come an incredibly long way. And we have a lot more to look forward to in the future. I mean, my first cell phone, I think I'm going to guess probably 1994, and it was the Motorola Brick. I could get a thin battery, right? But it didn't fit in my pocket. And now all it did was make phone calls, right? And I had voicemail. But now I absolutely live on this thing. I can't even do my job without my cell phone. So let's just continue this conversation and talk about sort of the future of technology and the future of industry in general, and how coding specifically and programs and apps really are going to consume that area.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right, so Bay Valley Tech is teaching folks to build websites. You're teaching Python, CSS, all of those things behind applications that we use every day. And these are jobs that normally are wrapped around the Silicon Valley tech industry. But Bay Valley Tech is really concentrating on getting those companies to move out here because we are growing that talent pool. Yes?
Yes. The Central Valley, has 6.5 million residents. So we're bigger than, 30 other states in the union. So there's a huge talent pool available out here, right? Lots of opportunities. We could be helping Silicon Valley companies grow. So there's a huge tech shortage that's been going on, across the country, across the world here for decades. And software specifically, it is one of the biggest categories, right? So a lot of companies are finding that it's very difficult to grow as fast as they could be growing now because of the shortage of tech talent. Latest data we've seen is, almost 1 million unfilled tech job openings in this country. We graduate, roughly 80,000 computer science majors a year. So that delta is significant. And what's a little bit shocking to all of us who work in the industry is that delta is actually growing. So some folks are projecting that the tech supply shortfall, worker shortfall, is going to exceed 3 million people across this country, in the future. So something needs to be done, and so that's why we're trying to help create opportunities for our folks to transition into more lucrative tech careers, but also to help create enough software professionals to help all of our companies to be able to grow at the speed that they're able to.
So 1 million jobs go unfilled. That is not, I mean, normally when we talk about that, like we're in the middle of this pandemic right here in Stanislaus County, there's like 20,000 people that should be working or not working, kind of thing. In the tech industry, that's different. It's because of growth. It's because it's the supply and demand, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you go way back to the late 90s, right? When I first started working in the internet, kind of right around 2000, certain companies grew very quickly, right? And I think a lot of folks were wondering, well, geez, how is it that the Yahoos of the world and the Googles can come out of nowhere and drive so much revenue, right? And I explained to people that they weren't garnering revenue from nothing, right? It was not it wasn't necessarily an industry where there was no revenue at all, and they had to grow it from, nothing. That usually takes, decades and decades. What happened is newspapers, classified ads, yellow pages, $20 billion industry, right? Advertising at that point, $100 billion industry. When folks, advertisers began to see that when they go online, every click is a survey, and they could see exactly what was happening with their advertising spend, right? A lot of times you advertise in some of these traditional channels, you just like spend your money as a marketer and hope and pray that it's doing the right thing and bringing in the right people, right? But with technology, you could see exactly where your dollars were going and what was happening and who the traffic was driving to your website and whether they were converting or not, right? So what happened is there's a big kind of sucking sound, right? Like billions of revenue just went from one part of the economy to another part, right? And so that's why, tech can grow so fast, because a lot of times the technologies come in and completely disrupt, right, something that's been going on for years or decades or hundreds of years, right? And so we're beginning to see that happen now in these non-tech industries, right? In the beginning, it was tech jobs, Oracle, Salesforce, right, IBM, that hired a lot of technology professionals. But we are quickly moving to the phase now where the non-tech companies and the non-tech industries are going to become the biggest drivers of tech job growth, right? Because, today still there are more non-tech companies in healthcare, ag, manufacturing, right, than there are tech companies. And, companies like Citigroup, right, committing to hire more software developers than software companies have, right? So lots of companies are becoming software and tech-driven companies in order to compete and thrive in their industries.
So we, the general public, most people don't think of the tech industry the way you just described it, right? So we, you roughly went over the dot-com boom and bust, right, in a timeline. You brought up Yahoo and online ads, that sort of thing, which is actually really appropriate because we're in the Tom Chagnon Education Center, formerly the Modesto B building. This building is enormous. It's 85,000 square feet, roughly. 185,000 square feet, excuse me. And in its heyday, when the printing press was down in the back of the building, there was probably 400 employees, maybe 400 plus employees now. That has shrunk expeditiously, much like the newspaper, the physical newspaper, because people read on their phone. And the return on the data that's collected, right, is that instantaneous. So you don't have to rely on the salesperson to say, oh, yeah, well, we circulated your ad and it was printed and those sorts of things. So we get that back. Not a lot of people see the tech industry evolving in such a way. You brought up agriculture, right? You brought up Citibank. That's a financial institution. I think almost nobody connects software development with the financial industry, but Wall Street would not run without technology and keeping tracks of those. Ultimately, the exchange of stock is ones and zeros that are being transferred, much like cryptocurrency today. I mean, there's just so much that technology encompasses. Things that most people wouldn't commonly connect the tech industry with, such as a company like Disney. That's an entertainment industry, right? We're doing this podcast. I've got a soundboard and a laptop computer. 20 years ago, to do what we're doing here, probably, well, maybe a little longer than that, but probably in an analog setting would have taken large recorders, and everything gets smaller. But when you're talking about things like Disney is a good example, and Pixar developed out of that. It takes a ton of software developers to create the software that the designers and script folks put together that film, and that's a great deal of talent. And ultimately, folks have to learn technology to do that. You brought up Citibank. That's a financial institution. Not many people connect the software industry with a financial institution like Citibank. right?
Yep.
But ultimately, those are, the exchange of stock, or, even today in loans, banking, loans and personal loans, home loans, all those things. It's ultimately ones and zeros that are being transferred, correct?
Yeah. And we were talking about Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you use Disney as an example, and this is why Citibank is investing the way they are. So Disney today, right? Where would they be today if they were not a technology leader, right? The company would be significantly different than where they're at today. Their streaming business is, growing like crazy, right? And it's
they're competition for Netflix.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's probably highly likely that if Disney was not a technology today, not only would they, would their company be significantly different, they would probably be at a great financial risk, right? Because could they dominate some of these sectors that they're in without being a technology leader? So companies like Citibank are seeing the writing on the wall as well. Can they dominate finance if they're not a technology leader? If they let their competitors gain that edge, right? And when we talk about technology, it encompasses, broader things, right? Other than just software, right? So there's cybersecurity, there's big data, right? So if you are a company like Citibank and your competitors are better at finding customers, sifting through the data, are better at offering relevant services, or have sort of drive more revenue per client than you can, because they have better technology and better manipulation of their data, you're going to be in trouble. And maybe not in 1 or 2 years, but in 10 years, your competitor could be so much more profitable than you. They could be coming to buy you, right? And so you look at agriculture. One of the things I tell folks is, do you think that all the new jobs in ag that are going to be created over the next 10 or 20 years are going to be fruit pickers? Or are most of those jobs going to be technology related, whether it's, automated sprayers or robotics or harvesters that we're beginning to use for more fragile crops like strawberries and things like that, right? Here in the Central Valley, we work with almonds. We can shake those things out of trees and use a lot of automation or equipment, right? Kind of what I call dumb mechanization, right? But in the future, right? The crops that are untouched, we still harvest cherries basically the same way we did 10,000 years ago, right? So that's an industry that's ripe for disruption. You cannot do that without machine learning, optical sorting, robotics, software.
And somebody has to write that software. Ultimately,
exactly.
It's someone who learns to write code at a place like Bay Valley Tech, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. Automated sprayers, autonomous vehicles are going to consume the future, right? Yep. When these stories first came out, we freaked out. Oh, I'll never drive a car that I can't drive myself, and then I would never drive on the highway because who's behind the wheel, literally, right? Yep. You bring up automated sprayers. They are actually testing up in Redding autonomous crop sprayers.
Yep.
And they let them go. They put them on a grid, right? They're mapped out by software developers, right? Mm-hmm. And then they let these things run, and they're very, very precise. But that technology actually gets even more elaborate because they're using things like drones and GPS technology and infrared to examine how much the crop, whatever product you're putting on the crop needs in a specific area, things like the water content and things like that. So you get all the science and technology, and when you're able to put it together, you eliminate a lot of the guessing, and that's where that data comes in, correct?
Yep.
So this industry, and I don't mean to cut you off, but this industry technology and the advancement of technology really spurs a whole bunch of sort of side industries, right?
Yes.
Data analysis, your common, we were just talking about Disney. So your common designer, right? Or artist, right? Yep. Illustrator or cartoonist, animator, I guess is the proper term.
Yep.
My wife began as an artist as such. She's got books and used to draw on like tracing paper, Mickey Mouses and Donald Ducks and things like that. But all of that is computerized now in vector art, right?
Yeah.
And all of those things you have to learn computer programs to do, right?
Yep.
So Bay Valley Tech doesn't necessarily teach folks to run programs for art and things like that, but you can teach folks to use or to write software, the code that will do those jobs, correct?
Yeah. And the thing that we find is that, if people can get more comfortable with technology, right? They are more open and more capable of being flexible and learning the new technologies that come along, right? So Bay Valley Tech, we teach foundational web development, software development, set of languages and frameworks. And the reason we focus on web development at this time is because there are a lot of jobs, right? Entry-level jobs in that field. So we can get folks into the workforce, right? Believe it or not, these students can get through our program and get access to a lucrative tech career in less time than it takes to get through beauty school and be licensed to cut hair, right?
Yeah.
And so this was not the case.
Are robots going to be cutting hair soon?
There are robots that are doing that. There are robots that are painting. There are robots that are laying, thousands of bricks.
There's a robot in a restaurant in Stockton.
Yeah.
Because during the pandemic, they couldn't get people to show up to work, so they literally hired a robot, and it took a programmer to build this robot. Ultimately,
go into McDonald's, right? How many people work at McDonald's today with all the automated ordering versus 5-10 years ago, right? And so it is helpful for us to teach jobs that can help people get into paying tech jobs right away. And then now as they're working in the field, they're going to be inspired to learn more and more and more, right? And the thing is, I explain to people, just because you learn how to code doesn't mean you necessarily need to work as a software developer, right? So for example, if you work at Cisco Foods and that working at Cisco Systems, selling routers is a much more lucrative job. A sales job is a sales job. They're very similar. The SKUs are different. The product knowledge, is different, right? But how could somebody who does not work in tech land a software job? Well, what if that person who's a salesperson learned how to code, right? Is that not an entryway, point, right? Would a company who is in software would they not be more open to hire that person as a salesperson in their software company, right? If that person knows how to write code, right? So we had an example of that in our own company. We recently hired someone in who had an education background, right? But because she joined our code academy and she learned how to code, all of a sudden she could help us with a variety of other things, and she could understand the tech industry, right? And so she became an appropriate employee for us, not as a coder in a non-technical function, right? And so learning this skill set will open doors in a variety of ways, right? And so it's good to teach the basic technology and then get folks into jobs, and then the rest will begin to happen. And so if we talk about the Central Valley specifically, right? One of the reasons that we've struggled with high unemployment over the years, we many of us, like myself, grew up on a farm. We have not been exposed to some of the fast changing things that are happening out there. So we don't push for those type of careers, maybe, right? And but meanwhile, the world has been changing quite a bit. And so if we do not begin to develop the skill sets that companies need for the future here in the Central Valley, companies will continue to step over us, right? We are located just a county over from Silicon Valley, right? From some of the highest per capita income places in the world. And meanwhile, our median household income doesn't match up with, somewhere like Austin or Denver, right? Like we're on par with Missouri. And it's just because we don't have enough employers here in the area, right? And so how do we get the employers of today to look at the Central Valley? Well, Phoenix, Austin, they grew their cities and they got tech into their cities in the 80s, right? Because they were able to help build chip fab plants. Back then, technology was driven by hardware. Today, if you look at all the leading technology companies, Oracle, right? Salesforce, Airbnb, Facebook, Uber, Google, right? These are all software-driven companies. The main thing these new tech companies need to grow and to thrive is good technical talent, people, headcount, right? So we don't need to build and rezone and, try to find 10 million square feet, for tech companies to move into here. That's not the number one thing that they're looking for. They just need a nice solid pool of growing tech talent. It doesn't have to be software. Like one of the things that Bay Valley Tech is doing is we're expanding to teach cybersecurity, to teach digital design, to teach digital marketing. These are all skill sets that tech-related companies need. And as we really begin to scale that up, we're going to start catching the attention of Bay Area tech companies who are already expanding and locating out of state, right? And so we're beginning to see this happen here in the Central Valley. And so it's beginning to accelerate with companies like Tyler Technologies moving in here, committing to the area. One of the companies that recently moved into our co-working space is called Web Inertia. They were just featured as the go-to web design, company for Silicon consulting company for Silicon Valley companies, right? Opportune, a publicly traded financial services company, has expanded out here to Modesto and is, hiring our software developers, right? And so back to our earlier conversation about what's going on with tech and non-tech companies and industries and the convergence, right? So when I manage the digital marketing team at Gallo, one of the things I used to talk about is that it's no longer about marketing and digital marketing, that it's really about marketing in a digital world, right? So that's really why you have a lot of non-tech industries and non-tech companies going, okay, we have to be throwing the football where the receiver is going to be and not where the receiver is today.
Yeah,
right?
I get that. It's a good segue. I'm going to take a break right here. We need to take a break. Your co-working space is here in the building, here at the Tom Chagnon Education Center, right in downtown Modesto. Formerly the Modesto B building, right? That's the example that you brought up. People used to read the newspaper. They don't anymore, which is why this building went vacant, right? Because they had to downsize. So we need to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk about expansion and growth, because Bay Valley Tech is growing so rapidly. So, all right, stick around, Phil. You guys stick around. We'll be right back after this.
StanCareerPath.com is a new website from the Stanislaus County Office of Education, designed to help students and parents, adult learners, and local businesses connect with career and technical education programs throughout the county. High school students and parents can use StanCareerPath.com to help with career pathway decisions in scheduling high school classes. Adult learners can use StanCareerPath.com to discover training programs available in Stanislaus County. Businesses can use StanCareerPath.com to connect with local high school programs and build partnerships in a variety of ways with educational agencies. StanCareerPath.com also allows for collaboration between educators in the same career fields. With resources like Join the Workforce, you can discover businesses in Stanislaus County that offer career opportunities for students and adults in 15 specific industry sectors. StanCareerPath.com is an excellent tool to collaborate as a county and work towards preparing our students for their careers. Check it out at StanCareerPath.com.
All right, we're back. Phil Lan from Bay Valley Tech is with us. He is a sponsor of this program. You can check Bay Valley Tech out at bayvalleytech.com. They are a coding academy, a free coding academy. You teach, and this is a question I want to ask you in the last segment. You teach coding in like 7 months or less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, my question is, can somebody really learn to code in 7 months with zero experience?
Yes.
Just unequivocally, yes.
Yes.
What kind of qualifications do you have to code in 7 months or less?
Well, grit, right? Hard work, and an ability to think logically, right? So today there are so many resources available that can walk you from nothing to being a competent coder. Junior hires are learning how to do it, right? And so the thing that we provide that's different than all of these free online lessons, there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country trying to get into better paying tech careers. They're trying to learn how to code. Lots of resources, right? MIT, Stanford, Harvard, open, university type initiatives, free code camp, lots of lessons. What we're finding is that roughly 5% of those people actually make it to the finish line.
Why? Do we know why?
It's because, when we're trying to learn something new that's fairly technical and that can be complicated, right? So think about learning algebra, right? Or learning math, right?
I'm married to a math teacher, so I don't have to do math.
So you as a student, you remember we're learning this stuff. Yeah. We get stuck on a math problem, right?
Sure.
We could stare at that thing for 3 years and never figure it out, right? But if your buddy leans over and goes, "Hey man, like move the X over here," right? Then, oh, okay, I get it, right? Then away you go, right? Then you could be learning more stuff, doing more lessons for 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so that learning process, there's just a lot of like, oh, okay, now I don't understand this. I don't understand how all this fits together. I don't understand the point of learning this, right? And I can't figure this out, right? So if you have a coach, if you have a class, if you have classmates that could lean in and help you, that significantly increases the success rate, right? So one of the things that we discovered as we were teaching, lots of folks how to code is that you don't need a PhD to teach you software development, right? So that's what we do at universities. The one I went to, basically every professor was a PhD, right? But if you're learning math, your friend who learned fractions 6 months ago is very capable of teaching you about fractions, right? Like maybe they're not good at decimals or algebra, mm-hmm. but if you have another friend who could teach that to you, right? Now you're able to, along with all of these free online resources, be able to piece together a curriculum and a group of folks that help you along the way, right? And you can be successful, right?
Is this what you mean by Bay Valley Tech has a unique community-based training strategy?
Yep.
This is it in a nutshell? You have folks that have learned code, have worked in the tech industry, know what the qualifications are on the exit in. Yeah. They bring those talents back to Bay Valley Tech and then teach the next generation.
Yeah, we are essentially, teaching a person how to fish, and then we teach them how to teach others how to fish, right? So
that's brilliant.
Yeah. So it's working very well, and so. One of the reasons that our program can be so low cost is because a lot of the time in front of the students does not need to be a PhD or even a paid instructor, because our program is free, so we invest in our students, but they do sign on the dotted line and commit that when they make it to the promised land, when they are successful, when they're being paid, they're professional in their industry, they come back and they inspire others, and they give talks, and they work as teaching assistants or volunteers teaching assistants, and mentor other folks and inspire other folks in the community. So that way we can begin to really lift ourselves up as a community, right? And so when we train 100 new coders this year, we have potentially 100 teaching assistants and helpers and mentors next year, right? And so you see this sort of multiplication effect that's beginning to happen. That's why Bay Valley Tech is scaling so quickly, right? We joke sometimes that we're the multi-level marketing organization of software development, right? Because you build all these legs under you, and then they are busy inspiring and training other people, right? And it's a better way, I think, to build up our sort of local tech community anyway, right? Because people understand they don't just come to our co-working space and to our academy to get, they come here to give too, right? And when we build a community of people who are willing to give to others, right, as they succeed, that lifts up our community, and that, you know, creates the sort of positive culture that we want and is necessary to take these communities who are underserved and have a lot of disadvantages, and to take them quickly, right, into becoming communities with a lot of attractive digital talent that employers are wanting to move into.
So Bay Valley Tech focuses on teaching in-demand web development skills. You have 2 locations, Modesto right here in the Tom Chagnon Education Center, another in Stockton, and you have a online free coding academy. You are expanding, and I ran across this article. Bay Valley Tech expands fast-growing free code academy to increase tech diversity in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you're moving into the East Bay, right? The East Bay.
And even beyond that.
We don't, or at least I don't, see. It's difficult for me to see through the trees here, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm looking towards the Silicon Valley. But there is a disparity, right?
Yep.
In the tech industry. I mean, it used to be you used to have a bachelor's degree and time in college and all of that to kind of get into the tech industry. You don't have to have that anymore, do you?
Yeah. And you know, think about the shortage of tech talent that we discussed earlier, right? So companies today are desperate for technology talent, right? And software, you know, folks specifically, right? And related, you know, fields like cybersecurity. So in the past, you know, the 4-year university degree was a minimum to get into the conversation, right? To be considered. A while back, companies realized, oh, that pool, you know, we're fighting for the same 80,000 graduates every year. This is not going to work. We need to be a little more liberal with our minimum requirements. So they began opening those up. And, you know, the other thing that's happening is, you know, having worked in Silicon Valley for 20 years, I tell folks that Silicon Valley is very, very diverse, but it's not very diverse because there are certain groups in our country that have largely been left out of the tech revolution. So if you go to large tech companies, right, often 2 to 3% of their tech workers are Latino or Black. And so that's a, you know, very, very significant underrepresentation of you know, certain groups in our country. So a lot of tech companies now, you know, have chief diversity officers trying to figure out how to help folks, you know, get into the industry. And one way to do that was to say, hey, you don't have to spend all this time because, you know, university degrees do cost money. And so companies from certain socioeconomic, you know, situations, you know, they can struggle to get through that. Right. So if we can all collectively find a path for more people to get into high paying careers much faster, right? It's not that university degrees are not helpful, but what we're doing here at Bay Valley Tech is we're partnering with organizations like Stanislaus State, right? Mm-hmm. We're partnering with MJC. We're partnering with higher educational.
SCO, you've partnered with the County Office of Education here, right?
Obviously, SCO's are, you know, one of our biggest partners.
Sure.
But in addition to that, we found that it's actually helpful to build a whole coalition in the community, right? So city leaders, County Office of Education, you know, Oak Valley Community Bank, right, just came in and became a sponsor of our.
I saw that on your LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yep. And the Ramus Foundation, right? Just came in and became part of the coalition to help push this too. And so as we all work together, I think we can bring more people who didn't really come from families where they had examples of folks working in tech and never thought about it, right? So you got these big tech companies that are spending millions of dollars right now every year to try to move their metrics above that 2-3%, and they're just not being successful at it. So Bay Valley Tech, 42% of our students are Latino. They're getting through the program. They're getting hired by local tech companies. 34% of our students are women. And so we are beginning to figure out what it takes to increase diversity and bring more folks into the tech economy.
So in this expansion into the East Bay, you're talking about partnerships. You've partnered with Console USA, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the tech companies, as you just said, they're trying to move their matrix, right? In that in those shortfalls, but they're so busy doing the tech thing that they do, they don't have time to teach. So this is a symbiotic relationship. You have created a coding academy that becomes a feeder for them. They go, wow, this is what we needed all along. And then so they become a partner, right, on the exit in, and you have these other partners that are helping you, like, for instance, our partnership here at SCO, right? We become a feeder for the students, right? Yep. You become the middleman, you teach them to code, and then you're successfully getting them internships and brand new, exciting careers in the tech industry. It's that string of pearls there really is a simple concept, isn't it?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and so there's different ways we all work together to partner on this, right? And one is a lot of our partners help increase awareness of the opportunity, right? And in tech, for tech careers, also help us increase awareness of what we are doing and what we're able to teach, right? And the tech jobs that are available. But many of our partners are funding partners, right? That they come together to help fund the training, right? So without them, right, we couldn't get this done. So Console is important. I think we spent a little bit of time on companies like them and why they're partnering with us. So what we are finding is large tech companies, Salesforce, Oracle, and all that, if you try to bring folks who don't come from university, backgrounds, right, and you try to teach them technology skills, and then you're going to go throw them into a large tech company who are just, you got Stanford MBAs, and Stanford computer science majors run around competing for those jobs. And now you're having to get thrown into a big pond like that. It can be a little intimidating, right? And it can be a little difficult to, get going fast enough to be able to do well and compete for those jobs. So these large tech companies now, and not just tech companies, but a lot of Fortune 500 companies are asking their partners like Deloitte, like KPMG, right? Their consulting companies to say, hey, can you help us increase diversity? Can you help us provide a place where they can work on projects for us, but they're not at our companies, right? That they get these folks who are new to tech have a little more time to get their feet under them. So Console is a company like that. They're involved in management consulting, digital transformation, and what they do is they work with Fortune 500 companies. They do these large projects for them, and their commitment is to go take that funding and to find pockets of places like the Central Valley that is sort of underrepresented in tech, and to help hire people in regions like this for tech careers. So that's why they were a very good partner for Bay Valley Tech. One, we're training all these people, and on our side, and then Console is finding the contracts, the funding, and the work, right, and the clients to be able to hire all of these students and give them a place to really grow and develop, right? And once they've been at a company like Console or KPMG or Deloitte for a few years, they're going to be much more capable, right, to go work directly for Google and all that and compete for those jobs, right? So all of these partnerships are crucial and have their place, and it's necessary to develop an end-to-end ecosystem, right? Like if you just only teach students technical skills and they don't have any
Technical skills, you mean like hard skills?
Like coding or digital design or cybersecurity, and they don't have any background. A lot of them, we talk about imposter syndrome, right? They feel like they don't belong, and a lot of times, you can get discouraged, you can drop out. So one of the things that Bay Valley Tech does when students come to us is we surround them with a very supportive community, right? And it's like, hey, I was working at Target, and now I'm a professional software developer. I used to be a truck driver. If I can do this, you can do this too. That is very important to create that whole, sort of process. And it's not just about the skills, right? And then one of the other things that we do is we do a lot of interview prep, right? Let's get your LinkedIn together. Let's get the resume together. Let's do mock interviews. We actually bring in real employers, real hiring managers to coach and talk to our students and give them practice. So, and then we've also developed a fast-growing internship program with SCO and in partnership with Workforce Development, so that students come through the Code Academy and then they can, get work experience, and then they get, ready for these interviews. Then they're introduced to employers, and then now we're seeing a very, very high success rate, right, in terms of making it to these tech careers.
Let me ask you this, Phil. If a school district or a county office wanted to start a coding academy with Bay Valley Tech, that's pretty easy to do? Yes.
So we have a pretty well-defined program right now. They just need to be able to, so there's different ways to do it, right? Yeah. So if it's an adult school program, right, a lot of adult schools are already outsourcing to other educational vendors and partners, right? So they just need to sign a contract with us, provide the funding, and we can come in.
Little space for folks to get together, but a lot of the actual curriculum is done online, right? The student.
COVID pushed all of our training online, and so now we have the capability to train students 100% online, and that's actually why what happened with expanding into the Bay Area, taking our curriculum online, pulled up our national expansion plans by 5 years. So now we have hundreds and hundreds of applicants coming in from the Bay Area, right, every month, and then we've got applicants coming in from Florida, from New Jersey, Chicago, right.
Opened a lot of doors for you,
country, because there are communities, right, that need help, that need their folks to have, more employable skills, right? And so there's communities all across the country. There's folks all across the country that need this help, and so we're able to do that. So we're able to partner with adult schools. We're able to partner with, county office of education, any city, county that has funding, that has workforce development funding. We can work with them and help them.
Technology in your pocket.
Yes.
So my next question on the more local level, if a school or a school district wanted to start a coding academy like on their campus, that's pretty easy to do as well, right? You ultimately need a teacher. Just like I picture it, the way you described it to me, sort of offline. It's like a club. You need an advisor, right? That advisor needs to know how to write code, right? But Bay Valley Tech can teach, like, for instance, a math teacher to write JavaScript or Python or CSS or something like that. And then here's the teach to fish, right? Then that math teacher can begin, or I don't know, maybe it's a shop teacher or a PE teacher or somebody. Because you're telling me you don't have to have experience to do this. You just have to have the will to learn and then share what you've learned with others. So if a campus wanted to start a coding academy with Bay Valley Tech, that's easy to do as well.
Yeah. I think a school district can begin to teach some of these digital skill sets, and again, this extends beyond just web development and coding.
Sure.
This could be cybersecurity, right? Enoch's high school just started off with teaching programming, and then now they've expanded into teaching cybersecurity as well. But this also includes digital design, right?
Yeah.
Those are very, very lucrative careers, right? Think about digital designers at Apple, right?
Yeah.
How much do they make? They're valued as much as the programmers, right? And so school districts can begin to teach these programs if they could find some instructors. What we found is some of these programs were getting started by teachers who just really cared to try to help their students learn the skills that would be helpful. And so they were business teachers, math teachers, even you can be a history teacher and you can learn how to code, right? And so what we did was we opened up the Code Academy to any teacher, high school teacher, junior high teacher that wants to come and join, because they're going to learn a lot faster, right, with us than just by themselves. So they can come and learn during the summers or part-time in the evenings or anything like that, and we can get them up to speed. So we have trained several teachers through our program already, and it's just really neat to see them get back to their schools, and they're starting hackathons, they're starting technology clubs and gaming clubs. A while back we started teaching video game design as well, right?
And that's stuff that kids that age dig,
Yeah,
and they adapt to it so well. So, all right, Phil, Bay Valley Tech is free or low cost, free and low cost coding academy. They teach programming and software development ultimately to anyone willing to learn. You're one of the fastest growing coding academies that I'm aware of. It's a unique community-based training system. You can check them out at bayvalleytech.com. You're a sponsor of this program, and we really appreciate that, Phil. Anything else to add?
Just that if you're interested in a career like this, don't be shy, contact us, look around, ask around. If you're an educator who's interested in teaching skills that companies want to hire for to get our students ready, please go ahead and contact us, and we'll, hopefully be able to help you directly or put you in touch with people who can.
It's all about partnerships. You can check them out at bayvalleytech.com. That's bayvalleytech.com. I'm going to link everything about Bay Valley Tech into the description on this podcast. But go right after this podcast, bayvalleytech.com, and check them out. We're going to be right back. Stick around. Phil, I appreciate you joining me and all your time here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Volt Institute in downtown Modesto is currently accepting applications for our next group of students for maintenance mechanics with hands-on training. Jobs in the industrial maintenance field are expected to increase by 15% in Stanislaus County by 2024. Careers in this field are high-paying, in demand, and have career growth potential. Volt Institute is a nonprofit training center ran in partnership with Stanislaus County Office of Education and Opportunity Stanislaus. If you're looking for a better career, Volt can help. Get more information or enroll now at voltinstitute.com.
All right, I really like those conversations with Phil Lan from Bay Valley Tech. Don't forget to check them out, bayvalleytech.com. That's all we have time for today on the program. Don't forget to subscribe, like, love, and more importantly, share this content with other folks that you think would enjoy it. Even if you don't think they'll enjoy it, share this content. Big thanks once again to our premier podcast sponsor, Bay Valley Tech Code Academy. And next episode, we're going to be talking talking about the medical industry, so you're going to want to check it out for that. So subscribe wherever you listen or watch. And thanks to our partners in Stanislaus, Tuolumne, Calaveras, San Joaquin, and Merced counties. My name is Kevin Fox. This is Ready for Work. Until next time, get to work.